Hi, I'm Chris. This is Melissa, Theo, Goose, Luna, and Bob. Welcome to our little adventure and review vlog from the Ohio and Pennsylvania border area. Today we're testing out the young electric aluminum hitch-mounted bike carrier sold by Outfit R. Please join us as we share our initial impressions, mistakes, install notes, and 3-point product review. In this video's description, you'll find product purchasing information, product discount codes, and, when available, links to both my POV assembly and hitch mounting videos. So sit back, relax, and keep your finger on that purchase button. We're going to load up the crew and see just how much abuse this thing can take. Will it survive the weekend? Let's find out. The young electric bike carrier attaches to a 2-inch receiver on a trailer hitch that you likely already have. Just take a peek under the rear of your vehicle to be sure. Intended for e-bikes, the carrier has a capacity of 200 pounds, features a tiltable design for easy cargo access, and comes with a convenient loading ramp to save your back before and after all those two-wheel adventures. Hands down, it's the most capable bicycle rack I've owned. This thing is beefy and has some excellent considerations for all those who'd like to spend more time on their bike and less time loading and unloading gear. I think you'll be as impressed as I was. On to the review. All right, we just completed our first trip with the Outfit R bicycle rack, stamped Yankee Electric all over it, and everything went well. I'm really impressed with the rack so far. It's sturdy, it's rugged, it didn't have any problem transporting the bicycle here, getting the bike on, taking the bike off. My only concern really is the dissimilar metals used to construct this rack. Most of it is steel here, except these cross beams that the bike actually sets on, which are aluminum. A lot of hitch-mounted accessories like cargo carriers use the same design, and it helps with weight. Aluminum is also a very tough material. That's why they use it. Very rigid material. That's why they use it for ladders and such. But my only concern, there's not really any plastic insulators or anything between these two metals. So it opens itself to corrosion due to dissimilar metals. And especially up here in colder environments where they use salt on the road, there's something called galvanic corrosion. So when you have two different metals in a salt water bath or water bath, and they begin reacting and eating one another. So in pleasant weather, this would probably be okay. And if you're a person who only uses the rack seasonally, or if you're a person that prefers to take the rack off, you probably won't run into that. But that said, since I do enjoy taking the racks off of my vehicles just for peace of mind and for security reasons, especially because I live in town, or even some of the places I ride, are sort of questionable. So I just feel better if I pull the rack and shove it in the back of the SUV. So with that in mind, the rack itself is a little difficult to remove with that long bolt. If you notice in the assembly video, I used an impact wrench. If you do that, it's not so bad, but it's a big bolt. There's a lot of threads on it, and you really have to jimmy this with one hand to make sure there's no tension on it so you don't mess up the threads in the bolt. You can get a security bolt or find some other way to mount the rack, and that's fine, but that would be an additional cost. I don't think most people are going to run these in bad weather, but some people may be near salt water, like near the ocean, maybe in salt, it's naturally occurring a lot of places, salt flats, even when you're off-roading different parts of the world. But so, I'd make sure you wash it off and keep an eye on this track, make sure it doesn't rust out. I think most people are probably going to keep their rack in a garage or inside a gated community, and they'll probably keep it on their vehicle when they're riding. Like a lot of folks will keep their kayak racks on their vehicle. The ramp itself is a really nice touch. And my bicycle, while it's not an e-bike, it weighs about 50 pounds. It weighs more than 50 pounds with gear on it. But the way I have it set up, it's about 50. I can lift it okay, but is this a lot easier? It sure is. You can do it with one hand. The bike rolls right up, sets in its brace, And then you attach this vertical pillar to the bicycle. With these nifty zip tie straps. And of course there's a strap for each wheel, which I demonstrated in other videos. I was very impressed. I have another rack. The other rack I have a tilting hitch-mounted bicycle rack. Mounts bicycles, I think up to 4 on the top tube. So in order to use that one, I have to remove the triangle bag and a lot of the accessories that I have on the bicycle, the seat bag, stuff like that, in order to get a good mount. I also have to run the straps underneath my cables because I have an old style bicycle and I end up smashing down the cables. So this one is a lot easier to use. It's a lot sturdier when I'm driving. It isn't shaking around as much, the hitch itself, and it's very strong. I just prefer to keep this gear on. There's less setup time. The only thing I ran into when I was running the bike, and you can see that footage now. We're at the first corner. Went around the corner to get on 86 here out of Paynesville, and the bike did that, and it scared me. I thought it'd come.
This is probably the result of a mistake on my part. The manual shows that the wheel chock should be positioned in front of the rear tire, but more on this later. For now, back to the show.
But it's still secured. It's just rocking back and forth. Just gotta tie a tension knot here. Piece of paracord I had on my bike. Just that ought to be enough to keep it from moving around. But I fixed that just by attaching this piece of paracord to the tire bracket here, the front tire bracket. And it was a lot sturdier than even my top tube mounted hitch. The bicycle rack also tilts, which is an excellent feature. And when I have an SUV, I would not attach any other kind of bicycle rack because when you go on trips, it never fails. You need to get into the cargo area. And owning dogs, it also makes it easier to unload the animals who are all excited once you get to wherever you're going. Most e-bikes range from about 30 to 80 pounds. Some fat tire e-bikes can go up to about 100 pounds. The rack itself has a capacity of 200 pounds, a load capacity of 200 pounds. So you could carry 2 fat tire e-bikes. The Kurt hitch that the rack is mounted to has a tongue weight of 500 pounds. And I think a towing capacity of like 3,500, maybe close to 4. So everything is over-engineered for what I'm using it for, but is easily going to carry your heaviest e-bikes. Ain't going anywhere, as they like to say in the biz. I wouldn't be surprised if it held a couple mini bikes on here pretty well also. For peace of mind, this locking knob is also really nice. It keeps the rack from moving in and out of its intended positions, upright, laid out, and then tilted.
In short, the Young electric aluminum hitch-mounted bike carrier does its job very well. But let's throw up the product report card and break down our review into 3 categories: hardware and materials, design, and ease of use. I found nothing wrong with the materials themselves. Welds looked great, the steel is a thicker gauge than I expected, the anti-rattle hitch pin is larger and more effective than most, and there's a redundancy of lock washers and lock nuts in some places. You can't have too many of those. 10 out of 10. Design. I took 2 points off here. I think the dissimilar metals should be insulated with some sort of gasket or washer. Mating surfaces, including fasteners, are painted, but paints wear off. Our vehicles, especially in the north, are sandblasted by dirt, salt, slush, gravel, and debris. Racks will be stored, scratched, dropped, and abused in all kinds of ways that will scratch them. Winter and life will find a way to complete the circuit. Most of our used vehicles up here are already fried. I didn't run a magnet on the square bolt of the latch mechanism, but it looked like it was either aluminum or stainless. The mechanism is a point of failure, but it's also a huge creature comfort. The adjustment bolt on the wheel chocks could also be beefed up a bit. While securing, I felt like I was striking a balance between tightness and life expectancy of the part. I would not anchor myself from the chock with any confidence. While loose, the chock naturally slid into its correct position. I did get it tight before I left, but sat the wheel on the chock instead of positioning the chock in front of the wheel as the manual shows in both diagram and text box. However, it also states to ensure the cradles are wide enough apart to support the bicycle tires. The diagrams are clear, that language is not. Give someone a leaning post and they'll end up balancing atop it on one foot every single time, without fail. At any rate, a piece of paracord on the front wheel fixing base secured the bicycle, a testament to the strength of all attachment straps. Changing the name of that part in the manual from cradle to chock would help alleviate customer confusion, especially if they never make it to that page or are linguistic learners dismissive of diagrams. Handling and ease of use. I'm including assembly and installation into this category alongside daily operation and use. Assembly, provided you have the patience to use hand tools and not over-tighten fasteners beyond a careful crush of the lock washers, is way easier than putting together most box store furniture. As I demonstrated, parts of the manual can be confusing if you just breeze through it under duress. But there's enough reiteration that a careful worker will get the gist. And if you assemble the rack on your hitch, as I did in my POV assembly video, you are killing two birds with one stone. Bonus. The rack itself is heavy. The website listed as 50 pounds, although my scale came in a little lighter. This is a mixed blessing. Fully assembled, it's harder to remove from your vehicle, but it's also a pretty effective theft deterrent, especially if combined with a locking hitch pin purchased separately. The weight is a factor in tilting the rack to access the cargo area, but only if you deadlift the rack from the bottom. Pushing up on the top tube of your bicycle or using the vertical assembly tube uses leverage to greatly reduce weight. Work smarter, not harder. Use your own discretion with that approach. One does risk damaging bike or rack components pressing those areas on a maxed out and fully loaded rack. The rack is strong enough that I'm confident you'll get away with cheating the lift. I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. But your delivery person might hate you for its shipping weight. I'm happy to recommend this bike carrier, especially for the fun-loving retiree crowd placing it on the back of their campers this or any other camping season. I give it a 28 out of 30, an A. Almost perfect.